So, what do you think of the video? Any thoughts, initial reactions, feelings? Yes? Please say your name first. Anya.
Anya, yes.
Hi, Anya.
I really like the contrast between like the chaotic energy when you're in the city and you're in the streets, and then suddenly that's contrasted by like suddenly coming above that and then looking at everything and it looks so peaceful and calm. I really like the contrast between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Like the video.
Okay. And within the streets, like driving through the city, like I love, for me personally, was how we every day navigate and travel wherever you are, right? Every day you navigate somewhere and you're traveling and you are breaking boundaries because you're either going somewhere for the first time or it's a routine of where you go and you know your route kind of vibe. Any other thoughts?
You can pick on anyone. Everyone gives their thoughts about this video. Pick on anyone that you want to see.
Yes. Please say your name first.
Nina, I'm Nina.
Hi, Nina.
I thought I really liked the music. The sound was beautiful. The cities that were shown are really big. They're obviously all African cities. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm Jared.
Hi, Jared.
Was that a compilation of different cities, or was it just one?
It's one city. Which city do you think it is?
Lagos.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
what did you think of the compilation of the different routes in Lagos?
It was very cool to see the street view compared to, like Anya was saying, the like contrast of the busy streets and then the like aerial views. It was really cool. But yeah, like the streets, they look like, wow, they look so busy. It's crazy to like navigate through there. I feel like you need someone to kind of guide you if you've never been there before.
And what makes you feel that like you would need a guide to take you through those streets if you haven't been there before? Just like
It just looks like so busy and there's so much happening. I feel like it could get like very overwhelming almost.
Okay, cool. So I played the video just to start off, just to showcase that people travel every day, and it's not traveling to America or whatever that counts as travel. Coming here today is a travel experience, and it's important to understand that for me. And for people to understand as well that travel is not something that you do to go to another space, but travel is something that we do daily and something that is represented in different ways, right? So people have different perceptions of what travel is. If you look at the past, if you look at the future, there's like futuristic models of like what travel means, what travel has been, but like for me, the most important thing is travel now, because that is what is shaping how people will travel tomorrow, influenced by how people used to travel. So like I thought like would start there just to showcase like really within one of the like I think one of my favorite destinations in Africa. It's really interesting how people navigate on a daily basis and how my conversations with people that stay there. It's really interesting for me. And with that, I thought we'd start by exploring your roots, like each and every one of us, through tourism, what that means, and explore where we come from, essentially, because we come from somewhere, and those people came from somewhere, and that is a journey, and they traveled either from A to B or were displaced from A to B, and tourism has been a vehicle to explore those opportunities. And I found this really interesting quote by a theorist named, well, I have never heard of him up until yesterday, but he says that to be rooted is perhaps the most important and least recognized need of the human soul, in the sense that for me, you need to root yourself somewhere. And for me, as an African and as a Zimbabwean, I'm rooted in land, I'm rooted in my community, I'm rooted in things I find really interesting, I'm rooted in the history that makes me who I am today, I'm rooted in the idea of what it means to travel now, but also to explore what the future of tomorrow might look like. So like my route is more of like exploring within myself to actually travel across time, to travel back in time, and to travel now. So I don't know if anyone can share like what is rooting them currently. So like what roots you currently, what grounds you, I don't know if that's the word. Any takers?
Okay, you can pick on that one.
For me at least, it's like my community and the people that I like share my life with. So being in a space like with friends, family, like I think to me that's like where roots are. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Can it be like an activity?
It can be anything you want it to be.
So for me it would be yoga.
Hi, my name's Angelina. I would say like for me, I feel rooted like in comparison to like my surroundings when I compare myself. I can like replace myself, like even in comparison to nature. I'm like, oh, like I'm actually this small compared to like this huge tree or forest, this kind of thing.
Okay, cool, interesting. Like, I was gonna read a passage. I don't know if you guys read the chapter. How many people read the chapter? Hands up. For the guys who raised their hands, what did you think of the chapter before I read my favorite part? Go on.
I thought it was quite interesting to read because a lot of it I didn't really know until like reading about it now. But I wanted to ask the guy that speaks, I forgot like one person's name, like who is like a short name, I think begins with an H, who kind of like instigated a lot of the changes. Do you know who that was, or like who it was written about, like from the perspective of?
What, the chapter?
Yeah.
Okay, so the chapter is a social history of the Kruger National Park. So that's the genesis of the whole book. So the specific chapter is referenced across different people that have written about traveling within the Kruger, the formation of the Kruger, and how people interacted within the Kruger. And I will read from, I think it's page 119. And it's really interesting, like how, based on the roots and how people were displaced within the Kruger, and this network of travel developed through displacement, right? And they say that it is the business of this executive to preach the gospel, particularly to the peoples of overseas countries that travel, and especially travel across to new lands among people different in habits, customs, costumes, and national characteristics. Puts joy in people, invigorates the intellectual faculties, furnishes material for diversity of thought, and gives edge and intensity to the perceptions. It rounds out the functions of the schoolroom and library. It enlarges life, enriches the mind, removes prejudices, and it is the boon to the weary and the sick and the nerve-racked professional and businessman. Right, so with that, for me, the interesting element is how travel to new lands then is this platform that allows you to invigorate your intellectual curiosity, but also it erases the people that are on the ground, right? So it makes no mention of people. So how then do we then in the future? So like this is 1927, right? May 1927. How many years later now? Like it's probably close to a century. And those people were erased in the history, right? So what are their futures now based off that erasure and based off that displacement? So for me, like the interesting element, especially around the roots, is how do we recognize erasure, but how do we take it to kind of propel the way we think about future and the future of us, right? So with that in mind, like this is like an interesting phrase that I've been trying to get my hand around, like getting a sense of revisiting the past through sheer materiality of being there, occupying spaces where their forebearers are known or believed to have been. So like how do you occupy space, right? How do you visit a space where your people were displaced? Or how do you visit a place where your forefathers displaced people, right? So within that, like I feel like builds kind of like a ground for us to reimagine what the future looks like, right? So you go into a space, what do you call it? My most favorite building in Stellenbosch, De Braak, and that there's a small white building with like cannons and shit. So like I don't know if I can say shit. But yeah, so like it's really interesting for me because that was a fort that, and I was reading some history on that part. So like it was kind of like the last port of like defending this new territory, right? So how then does that in itself, right, that act, that building standing there now, right, influence how you travel? So when you go there, what does it bring up, right? When you revisit that, like, what do you see, right? Because you go there and it's a building, but like mentally, you see something, right? You see a history, even if you don't understand the history, even if like you've never been there, have never heard of it, the building tells you that, hey, I'm the shit here, kind of. So like it's really interesting for me, and with that in mind, like I'm really interested in what's the name? Heritage, like heritage landmarks and spaces, right? And this is from inside the Christian Borg Castle in Ghana, the doors of no return, right? So people were taken and went through these doors and they never came back. Some never made it wherever they were meant to go. And for me, it's a journey, it's a travel thing, it's a travel journey that they didn't sign up for, right? And travel in its element is really complex and means different things to different people. So I thought I should share this image, looking at how do we then communicate what it means to travel now, but also to commemorate, right? To commemorate and bring visibility to spaces that mean so much and hold so much history to who we are as a people, to who we are as a continent, and literally like some really painful stuff. And any thoughts, any questions, any feelings? Yes?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting if you sort of like unpack like why people travel, like, and even the word travel versus tour versus backpack versus visit. You know, they all have different sort of connotations, and like I've always been interested by like what people see when they go to a foreign place, or even if you're in your home territory, so to speak. What do tourists see in your space? Because it's historic moments or monuments, some of them traumatic. So you always see tour groups going to like the castle or going to, you know, wherever. And then the other things that kind of like strike me is that sort of, it's either natural beauty, or then there's the experience side of things, which is food, the local culture or dance or music or how local people live. But it's actually quite a strange package. And of course the other thing on the nature of safari, under natural beauty, other than waterfalls, people want to see in the context of Africa, animals. But like, I find it like it's a strange question of like why, because I mean your quote that you read there, like people do to be alleviated or to de-stress, so that's travel for leisure. But there's another kind of like travel which is maybe linked to the quest for self-knowledge. So the thing of roots is quite interesting, because I was once challenged by someone saying like, why are you not in your home country? Like, what are you doing here? And they were like trying to fathom why. The question they actually asked me is, what is happening in your home country that you're here? So the assumption that I was not in my home country because something bad was happening there, and therefore was, so that's a different kind of travel. So I'm just kind of like, I'm interested by your total unpacking, because I kind of thought, oh, well, this is a talk about like happy-go-lucky travel. But I think you're problematizing even the notion of travel. Why do people move from one place to another?
Yeah, because like I think it's people like move for different things,
Yeah.
right? So and people have been moving since, right? So I was looking now. There's a part like which specifically talks in this chapter to that around how I'm trying to find it, like how in the 1902 there was a problem of few settlers coming into the country, so they had to do a whole marketing campaign to encourage settlers to come into the country, because they felt that there are few whites, right? So like the earliest century people came because they were targeted to say like there's opportunity, etc., etc. But the archive has forgotten people that originally were traveling across the continent. At the beginning of this book, it talks around how the Kruger, when they set up the fence in 1901 as the Sabi Game Reserve, right? So you had people on the other side in Maputo, you had people on the other side in Zimbabwe, but now they couldn't go past because now they have say this is a national park, this is a national asset, right? And they've policed how people move, and you have to pay a tithe, etc. So like it's really interesting how that is evolving, but also how we commodify those experiences, right? So now the people within the area are part of the package, right? So like when you go to the Kruger, you cannot go there and not go to a cultural village and get this artistic performance of Africa, because that's what you paid for, right? So it's interesting for me in that sense, but also it's interesting now how it has evolved from here. So like I'll read one part here, which was really interesting for me, right? So it's the beginning of this chapter where the elites from the ANC were fighting for their rights to travel by train, right? So they couldn't travel by train because they're black, right? But they were fighting for this right, and then they did meetings with whatever. So like I'll just read, I think like it's 1, 2, 3 paragraphs, right? Just to illustrate how this struggle, right, as a black body to navigate and move around your own land became policed and was used as a way to, and religion comes in to use it as a way to showcase that you are not lazy or some weird shit like that. So on March 19, 1912, 3 men called Jacob Bas Sosa, the Minister of Railways in the Union of South Africa, Sefako Mahato, Thomas Mapigela, and Saul Plaatje were leaders of the South African Native National Congress, founded 6 weeks earlier following calls by Pixley Isaga Seme for a native union to help Africans fight for their political rights in the new state. The men were there to protest against the ill treatment of Africans by officials in the state-owned South African Railways and Harbour Corporation, which is where South African tourism came from, right? So they came from this one organization, right? And this was the second meeting between a government minister and officials of this new organization. The first meeting had taken place in early March 1912 when a delegation led by SNNC President John Dube, met Henry Bolton, the Minister of Native Affairs, to object to a draft squatters bill that threatened to curtail the already limited rights of Africans to land. We could say after James Clifford that these two meetings between SNNC and the government were about roots and roots. Roots concerned the right of Africans to land. Roots meant their right to travel. Roots and roots spoke directly to two of the primary concerns of elite and non-elite blacks in South Africa in the early 20th century. However, historians have ignored the fact that these two meetings took place within weeks of each other. They have tended instead to focus on the land question and to neglect the equally important struggles by Africans in colonial South Africa over the right to free travel. This privilege of roots over roots has blinded scholars to the complex nature of the black experience of the birth of modern South Africa. It has made it difficult for scholars to comprehend fully the significance of events such as the meeting that took place in Cape Town on March 19, 1912. The neglect of the historical significance of that meeting has also made it harder to understand, on Africans' own terms, African grievances about their treatment on trains. This grievance is a constant of the 20th century, point to a tangled relationship between Africans of different classes and the land. The three men who met Sosa claimed to speak for Africans. In truth, they spoke for mission-educated elites who wanted to enjoy the trappings of the modern world, such as travel by train without interference. These elites constituted a small community for whom travel fell outside the dictates of the colonial state and its nascent industrial economy. So literally you can see that from that, right, this has been the struggle around the industrialization, the trains coming in and going inside to bring out raw materials to the ports, but also considering and looking at how these trains also opened up Africa for the natives who could afford it, but they were discriminated against. Right? So you look at that in the past, and then you look at that now, how continuously now black people are either priced out of certain establishments or are visibly discriminated against, right, in those establishments. So, question time again. So, in the light of what's happening now with COVID and everything, I thought it would be interesting to look at how we photograph and visualize the post-colonial traveler as an essential tool to guide future actions and policies that could play an even more role in the future of travel, right? So it's really important within the framework of where we are now with COVID and being stuck and trying to redefine what it means to travel and the stay-at-home orders, the travel restrictions, and being closed in one space, right? How then does post this or during this period, how do we visualize that? What does it mean to go to the shops, for instance? What does it mean to go to the park? What does it mean to go to the nightclub? What does it mean to go to the restaurant? How do we represent that? How do we communicate? How do we look at that as an avenue to build actions and to force legislators or policymakers to consider how we envision, how we visualize, how we see travel happening? So I don't know, yes?
Yeah, I think something that is exciting though, you're talking about how Africans are often priced out of travel within their own country. And that's very true of a lot of the destinations in South Africa. They're very high-end, they're basically targeted to the foreign market. And what COVID had to do, be it restaurants in Franschhoek or be it, Kruger Park or whatever, they've now had been posting a lot of advertisements for the local traveller, at reduced rates. And I would like to see the post-COVID travel experience being something that maybe has 2 tiers of rates for a SADC, or not even SADC, let's go an African. If you can furnish an African passport or document, you have a rate, an African rate and a foreigner rate. Like other countries in the world do this, like in South America, what else? And like I think that for me, like we want to experience things within our own country, and by and large those things are very elite, very, very elite experiences. So that like when you say like how does this impact the future of travel, I would say that's a positive for me. If more Africans are experiencing the good things that their country or neighbouring countries have to offer, be it whatever, like Vic Falls, I mean that wasn't really marketed, that was marketed to people abroad.
Oh yes, Vic Falls in travel is part of South Africa, by the way.
Yeah.
I think I like completely agree with like what you're saying, like going to like the Okavango is like an example of like there's no way I can afford that until I'm like 45 years old and I've actually got a job and like
I still can't.
Like, yeah. And that's like the horrible thing is that like it's always cheaper to fly all the way to Thailand or to Bali for 12,000 rand for 2 weeks than like to go to your neighbouring country and have like an authentic experience there. Or even like Namibia, but that's another example. The only way to travel in Namibia is if you go to like those bougie lodges to go stay. Yeah, there's like no backpackers or like accessible routes.
There is, speaking of.
I think for me there's another complication, and I'll focus on tourism because it's a particular sector that I put question marks around. So I think the problem with this idea of travel, especially to this kind of like national parks, Okavango for example, is that they are very much steeped side by side with this idea of conservation, right? So conservation is also seen as something that is the resolve of a particular group of people. So I grew up because I like nature, but so I grew up watching a lot of like animal documentaries across the African continent, right? And I've got a friend who works in KZN, it's a game reserve, and she's this sort of like community liaison between the game reserve and the villagers that live around the park. And their role is to get outside of the national park and go to like these rural schools and teach kids about animals and whatever. They never come to the park. She has to go outside the park, right, to teach them about when you see a rhino that is strayed outside the park, please alert us, so these animals are important. As if people don't have indigenous knowledges of why these animals are important already, right? They are part of our totems. They're actually part of our identities, So I think this kind of like conservation is now also the resolve of a particular group of people. So then the logic is like we need high-end tourists who will pay so that we can repair our fences that divide the park and the people. We need high-end tourists who can come and pay so that we've got an elite group of people who are going to move around protecting the rhino. Now people move around, like there was a whole campaign in South Africa right now, a few years ago, save the rhino, save the rhino. How the fuck am I going to be interested in saving the rhino if I've never seen one? So I think so it's again this little divide, and then the logic comes of not making sense because suddenly you're like, oh, we have to be allies in protecting this thing, but a rhino is now actually the property. It's like your car. People own rhinos, people own elephants. It's private property. And I think there's a question around also these things. Can somebody really own a rhino on the African continent? Like this is mine? So these are just to complicate things.
With that, because for me, also it's just a question of hunters versus poachers, right?
Yeah.
So poachers are people that stay in the community and have been hunting for a long time, and then you've got another thing. So it's a rabbit hole. Yeah. But just to read something, right? So it's called From Crow Natives to Squatters to Resident Natives, right? The Sabi Game Reserve was founded in part on the assumption that Africans were inherently bad for wildlife. Africans were considered primitives who knew nothing about the sporting codes, followed by Europeans, but not boar hunters. So when Stevenson Hamilton, right? So this is the guy that Skokuza, the town in the Kruger National Park, is named after. When Stevenson came upon African homestead in September and October 1903 during his inspection tour of the Singwitsi Game Reserve proclaimed by the Transvaal administration in May 1903, his inclination was to expel them from their lands. He had, after all, got rid of more than 2,000 Africans living in the Sabi Game Reserve between August 1902 and August 1903. So, like, just to say with your point, like, it's this thing like where people are thought to not understand nature, but they are within nature, they grew up within nature, and there's this new government that then is saying that we know better than you, and we will police and show how you guys interact with us. Yes, so the next phase of the chat, I don't know if anyone has any other comments or questions, can ask at the back.
What came to my mind is like the COVID passes or the vaccine passes, and how that might change travel quite a bit, especially for people who can't afford to like vaccinate themselves and their whole family, and how that would change the routes of people.
But vaccines are free.
Are they?
Yes.
Sorry, okay, never mind. Hey, I haven't been vaccinated. I haven't been vaccinated.
Angelique.
Sorry, I was looking up now. I was in like friend, right?
But it's still, I mean, particularly so like with the COVID passports, like in Dubai apparently now, you can only, or like in the UK, you can only go to certain clubs or restaurants and festivals if you've got a vaccine, which is also almost taking your rights away of choosing whether you want the vaccine or not.
And even like specifically the type of vaccine, because apparently like some countries don't even accept, even like vaccinated like South Africa, they still don't accept that.
No, we got Pfizer.
But some people, like some countries, even though you've got the right vaccine, still don't accept that it's good. Like I've heard on people that have traveled, and they couldn't do, like they had to go a different route because they weren't allowed to go to anything about it.
Yeah, like so different countries have currently accept different vaccines. So like if you have the Sinopharm or the Sputnik or whatever, some countries won't allow you because they want you to have their Pfizer or J&J, whatever it is, Moderna, and if you go to the other side in the east, it's the same. They don't want those ones, they want their own. So like it's really interesting space where we are, and I feel there's a lot of opportunity for us to talk more and see how best, I don't know, like it's complicated. Like, yeah.
But I mean, isn't this? I think the opportunities that people are not able to travel abroad, so they have to travel locally. I know people that they now do Airbnbs, like even just to a different part of Cape Town. Like they might live southern suburbs. They just go to the weekend for Simonstown because you live there like a local. You enjoy the local things there, and it's like I think in some ways I also feel that parks and safaris went hand in hand with colonial occupation. So the whole history of that is a colonial history of removing people to create sanctuaries for wildlife. But that's one kind of tourism. But there's another. I think tourism itself has completely changed. Like people don't want the village dance reenacted. Like I think that
you'll be surprised.
Well, okay, maybe people who reside on the continent do not want that. It makes people very uncomfortable. Like. So maybe there's a whole thing of like how does catering for a local market totally change what you offer? Because what you want then is to know about the best like Ethiopian restaurant in Cape Town, or where can I eat good Ghanaian food in Stellenbosch, Mike, you still need to take us there. Or, that now is where the experience is at. It's not about like seeing some cringe-worthy weird reenactment as if you're a Swiss person or whatever, because I think that's the shift for me, is that who is your audience, who is looking, and who is experiencing, because you're going to offer very different things then.
I think there's an issue. Oh, sorry, I just want to say, I think many people look to travel as the answer for experiences and like enrichment. Right? So most people I know, whether like I'm not sure if you know like Sam Polar or I actually met these people and they told me they look to travel for their career as building experiences and connections with the world. And I think there's a beautiful silver lining in everything. Now with COVID, I've never really traveled my country before. And it's kind of forced all of us to indulge back in our own culture and enrich within ourselves again. And that's beautiful, I think, for people to really dive back into the history of their own past. So in travel, there's a new birth with a new traveler that's evolving within all of us. And that old, the old nomad where you would take a backpack and a camera and you would go make cool YouTube videos and see that's kind of faded away. And now people are looking, to these cool road trip YouTube channels, and there's a new traveler that's being born, and it's being born within the birth of COVID, which is very cool.
I think it's complex, and I think what Annabelle you're saying is very interesting, because I think on one end of the spectrum we've got this need, or of tourism to really think around the domestic market. But what do we also mean around the domestic market? Because we have to disaggregate this. So you do a lot of work with Visit Stellenbosch, for example. Now the Germans cannot come here because of COVID and whatever. When people say Visit Stellenbosch, people who work in that office, when they say visit Stellenbosch, what kind of person do they have in mind that they want to visit Stellenbosch? Is it the Johannesburg, black person who is working in Sandton, or is it Visit Stellenbosch? You want the Germans to come and the people from the Dutch to come because they bring forex kind of thing? Or so is that changed? Is that shift changed? Because it speaks to what you spoke, I think, a little bit later, earlier. Would people be comfortable if tomorrow we go to Ruston Fraser across the road here, and you find all the people who are doing wine tasting are black? Or are they, even as a wine farmer, are they comfortable with taking that money and being like, this is how we're going to represent ourselves? We're actually finding this. Or they're actually going to be like, yo, what's happening here? I think it's too drastic a shift. So I think even we have to be honest, for these markets, for these things, you have to, there's still this kind of ingrained mentality around who is the ideal traveler. And who is the ideal, person for this restaurant, for this experience, for this 5-star lodge, for this kind of place. So even when you're talking about the Victoria Falls, that's why the price tag is actually quite high. Maybe just another little story. Somebody was speaking about Botswana. Botswana, when it attained independence, it opened its national parks to the public, to the whole population. So people were going there for weekends and weekends. People in cars and for leisure. And then Botswana was like, this image is not really the image that we want to do. So I think it was something, let's say if you want to say 200 or 150 rands for people to get into the national park. And then in came in a new president who was like, I think we can gain more here and actually maybe position ourselves as an international kind of a really hot spot for tourism. So from 150 rands to get into a national park, they just enacted a law that says it's now 3,000 to get into a national park. That then eliminated the domestic market, and then of course I can fly from the UK because 3,000 rands in pounds is nothing. So they literally turned their whole, nature or whatever into a properly, literally we want international tourism. So you hardly find somebody who is living in Botswana who is able to afford to go to the Okavango, for example, because it's ridiculous the prices that are there.
So, just to comment quickly, I feel in terms of audience, right, what has happened, the shift, is how people and most destination marketing organizations, most tourism operators, most guides, most restaurants are thinking around survival more than anything else. So they're at a point where now they're trying to figure who their future customer is, right? But within that, they are struggling to build a proper identity or a user profile to say we are interested in exploring young people that are interested to learn about culture, or young people that are interested to learn about wine, right? And going back to the issue of cost, you look at Rwanda, Uganda with the gorillas and the permit $1,000 or something like that, right? So and they've taken it down to $500 but locals are still not going because I'll spend on the
It wasn't that, sorry to interrupt, but that decision was made also because of the sensitivity of the area. So how do you limit people? So how do you still maximize your national treasure of gorillas? But how do you ensure that you get the money in to protect them? I'm using lots of air quotes here. But at the same time, you can't have 1,000 people a day going in there because they're going to get totally stressed out. And, you know, so I thought that the gorillas in particular was one where they took that limited high-end route because it was the only way they could enable that, you know, and they saw it as a national treasure, as an asset. But, like, I mean, the wildlife is one thing, you know. I mean, like, what's been interesting to me is to see how the use of a free national park, Table Mountain, has totally shifted in the last year. Now, to me, that's the first time that I feel that the people who are using that mountain are a broad spectrum across class and race. And that shift happened because of COVID. I mean, it's still got a long way to go, but there's definitely a shift. And it's visible. Even the number of cars, you can't even get near, like the old, tiny little parking lots. So to me, so maybe we need to look at a mixed model where some things are just free, all access, and others are like the gorillas.
I think for me, it's not even just to add another layer. I think it's partly because of COVID. But to be honest, I think it's partly because of this role that I like very much, the influencer.
Yeah.
Because the influencer is the middle class person who never had access but who's got a smartphone. And they go to the places that they were traditionally not allowed to go, and they document it, and they say, this is really cool. When you're in Cape Town, this mountain is free. You can actually come on this mountain and go on these routes, and da-da-da-da. And that person speaks a language that is much more palatable to a different audience. So that when people begin to see somebody who looks like them speaking about these spaces, then they're like, this is possible, I can do this. I didn't know that wine tasting is 80 rands. You know, I thought it was 5,000 rands because I'm excluded by the people who usually go, okay, now next time I'm going to also go to the wine tasting. I'm also going to go to Table Mountain because it's actually free. And I think because people have been stressed out within their homes and within their flats, and then obviously spending so much time, screen time, you then are likely to encounter this kind of like influencers who then pull you into these spaces. You're like, I'm actually in Cape Town, I've never been to, you know, to Table Mountain and so on and so forth. I mean, Tando, you are in this class. How many people from Kayamandi have been on that mountain? Very few. It's free. But there's something that just, that distance that just says, you know, it's a bridge too far. But then if you see Tando and his influencers and he's walking his dog there, you're like, impossible. So I think the role of the influencer as a marketing, you know, is almost like as a free, and now they're being, you know, monetized, right? Then if I'm Kruger, then I'm saying, wow, there's an influencer who's posting about Kruger all the time. Maybe I need to get them into my marketing team. Because this person is able to communicate and to give the visual messaging to a different kind of audience, which I need in order to survive. So now I don't care where the money is coming from, as long as it's coming.
Because like that segue into the next part of the talk, which is roots and mode of memory. And I was particularly interested in exploring how roots, so like how we package things, right? So how I'm packaging things and how those packages kind of like follow a narrative or kind of like tell a story, right? So travelers engage in a variety of commemorative activities during their travels. Some of these activities are highly structured components of package tours, apparently purposefully designed by organizers to contemporize participants' time with that of their forebears, and that's merging the past and the present, right? So like looking at the history, like I'm interested during my time in Stellenbosch to explore the history of the wine farms and how they came to be and how we can enjoy wine but still engage in the history of where this land came from, 1652 best wine, and like they just didn't get into a land and find it empty. They had to displace people, but the wine is nice. Right, so like it's kind of like those things where like I'm like, okay, like I can't literally go there and be angry. Like the wine is nice, like we're gonna enjoy it, but like I'm interested in looking at how we have conversations around what it means to be in that particular space. And I shared this video, right? So this image. So it's an image of people going into like a slave river where slaves had their last bath before they went onto the ships, right? So like they had to hold each other, and they do this commemorative thing on package tours in Ghana where like you go through the journey, what it meant to actually go into the ships, right? So like you go in here, if you want to get in the river, you have the last thing, and then you go back to the doors of no return, right? So like it's interesting for me how these experiences are being packaged, and also like what type of stories we want to tell around the past and the future, right? Because this will then definitely influence how we think about the slave trade if I've experienced that really packaged, yes.
So I have a question for you, like, as a digital creator yourself, what is your idea and what's your goal of telling your stories? Like, do you want to unpack the true story and reveal it to the world by your videos, or like what's your whole purpose of when you go to a place? What are you trying to unpack? Do you want to unpack them?
I'm gonna have a good time, bro.
You just want to share
like the first thing, I want to enjoy myself. Like I don't want to go to a space and be angry. I just want to go and have a good time and engage with the people who are there before everything else, right? And then within that, I get to learn more about the space, and then I get to like feel like, do I record this, or do I have a conversation, or do I create a content piece? Because like I might go and the person might not be comfortable with me shooting, right? So like I have to be sensible to that. So for me, the biggest thing is enjoyment, number one, learning, number two, and connecting, right? So like the more I connect, the more I learn, right, about the space. Even if I don't document it online, like I can write a note in my journal to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I don't put it digitally, right? Because it's thing, but like also understanding and going back to your question to say like, what do I want out of it, right? So like for me, the goal is to build a database of places, experiences, people, things that people can do wherever you are, whatever your interest, right? So going everywhere, I don't like, if you invite me, come, let's have drinks, go wherever, I'm not going to say no. I'm going to come and I'm going to learn something, and I'm going to say it in my journal. Like on 20 October, I went to the bar with Mike, and we had a great time, but like there was that waiter who had poor service, right? And because of that, we didn't leave a tip, right? That's my review. Someone else who's going to come after me is going to be like, they had a great time, but there's a horrible waiter, right? So like it's those kind of things. My biggest thing is to try and build an archive and build a travel log of people traveling the continent, but also reviewing and sharing their experiences.
So you want to share your experiences with the world,
Yes.
with people that didn't have the opportunity to
Yes.
go and indulge in those experiences you did.
Yes, to try and motivate them to at least in the future, to want them to say like, okay, like I deserve to go and taste wines in Stellenbosch at some point in my life, right? With that, like I'm probably going to learn about how the wine is made, what type of soils are important for this type of wine, or I can go around, look at the public art and learn more about what it means for the city and what it represents, right? So like this, for me, the important thing is learning and documenting and archiving. Oh yes. So with that, so like there's like, I think the most important thing like also is to realize that they're different travelers, right? Others are spontaneous, sometimes anticipated individual moments that learning trip as lived and as told are never exactly, they're never the same of like what I was trying to say now, like the experience is never the same. Like the way I might experience Okavango is different to how you would experience it. The way I would experience traveling in a taxi is different to how you would experience it. So like travel is kind of like different for everyone, and they're different stories, and it's really important to capture those. And with this, like I'm trying to move now to look at narratives and how we document, and going back to a question around how we as digital content creators, how we create content, and travelers directed with these activities provide a window into their subsequent assessment of the experience and in its place within their evolving relationship to their collective past. How then do these travelers make their journey through time, right? So what you were saying, like, so for me, it's all about learning, but like how do I make this journey through time? So like I'm learning about Stellenbosch, but like I'm learning Stellenbosch now. Stellenbosch has a history, Stellenbosch has a future. And then how do we kind of like move between that through these lessons?
But don't you think nowadays everyone's a content creator? Because something that really struck me is going to India 10 years apart. The first time I went was pre-internet, pre-Instagram, pre-all that stuff. And for me, the difference was so marked. Like, you know, you might in Jasima get like rooftop terraces where people would chill in the evening and like have sundowns on the meal. In the past, everyone was talking to each other, like talking to past people. Hey, what did you do today? I did this. Or you must go and do the camel thing. It's incredible. Or like, you know, whatever. Or journaling. People were like writing in their journals, looking out at the beautiful view. When I went back 10 years later, everyone is like doing this. Or on laptops, updating their status and like either blogging or Facebooking or... And I was like, this is a fundamental shift in how people are experiencing the journey in time. Because in many ways, the constant updating of each day or whatever, through digital media, through sharing it globally, I presume, with people around the world, I was really fascinated by that. I was kind of wondering, like even when people arrive at a place, the first thing they do is they take a picture. They don't even like look anymore. And I mean, like I know this is an old phenomenon, even Susan Sontag wrote about it, but I do feel that there has been a shift in, like, why do people travel? Do they travel just to create the content? Like, I don't know, it's sort of a really, for me it was very different. There was very little interaction among people traveling. Everyone was on their own mission. Yeah.
It's like, when you go to a place, right, you see very little, like, actual content creators that tell you the full story, the full narrative of something. You know, most time when we see travel videos, we see skydiving, riding on camels, it's always this adventure-packed, beautiful experience. But very few content creators actually showcase like what traveling in a certain country is all about. Whether it be the endless bus rides to the beautiful destination, or you don't ever see that narrative. And that's why I feel like there's such a need for storytelling within content creating. And this whole digital age, like, it's literally what you like we get content shoved down our throats every single day. And the need for good storytelling is so out there, no one's really doing it. So this whole shift that you're doing in telling the process of past experiences is so cool. Just getting the whole like full story or something.
There's this thing that someone said, it's like when you're like that game where you say, would you do this if this and this and this, or would you? And the one thing was, would you go travel if you weren't allowed to take a phone or a camera or document it in any way? Would you even go? And it was such a weird question, but it made so many people like at the table just like, like, would I go? Is it even worth it? And that's just crazy.
Which is like, I feel the shift, right, is smartphones and access, right? So you look at people wanted to document. I feel people wanted to document, but you either had to buy like a huge film or like whatever, and then that was out of range. And then like that's why like most landmarks had like photographers who would like do instant photos and stuff like that. And the shift is you have two types of content creators, right? You have people that create content for themselves. So I'm creating content to build a memory library, which I think like was roots like a mode of memory, right? I'm building a memory library for people that come after me to see that my grandfather, great-grandfather went to 300 countries, right? And this is the archive of where they've been, this is their experience, this is what they learned, right? And then that educates you in the future. So, and some other people are interested in sharing their travels and making those public, and kind of, I have one video later on which also like looks around what he was talking about in terms of like moving outside of the cool content, right? So like there's cool content, and then there's like really everyday content of showcasing different experiences, different places, and that's the type of content that I'm interested in, because I feel that's content that educates you about a particular place without taking anything away from the activities and the cool things to do.
But Trevor, then I've got another question for you, because it goes back to your surf spot thing. So there's stuff that locals enjoy doing, that's kind of like the locals' best kept secret. And then you get some influencer who comes in and like reveals the beauty of the secret spot. And then you've got buses coming in there with 20 million people. And like, so there for me, the things that now everyone's on the hunt. I remember even the snobbery around, like people are like, oh, I'm not a backpacker, I'm a traveller, you know. So like, I'm on some like special elite, like I've got the down low. Like I know where the really cool spots are. I'm not going to share it with you because I've done my time. I've been in this country for longer than you have. Maybe I can speak the local language, you know, blah, 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 blah. And so like there are these layers and layers to travel and why people travel, because there's this weird thing of like you want to get the authentic experience. But I also feel there's a cost to local people with that authentic experience. And it's a conundrum, I think, for people like you who want to reveal the authentic experience. So how are you going to navigate that?
The nice thing with COVID is we don't have the big buses anymore. Right? So like it's really kind of like killed the big 20, 30, 50 group travel, right? So like everything is going really small, customized and intimate. But also I feel like it's important to showcase these local attractions. The only problem is then what we were talking about earlier with the Okavango and what, where then the owners and decision makers then are like, oh, we have Americans coming, so let's bump up the price or something. Then that takes the locals out of that space. Like what I'm trying to do and research through my trip now is to look at how do we build sustainable local businesses that are local first, whether you have a tourist or not. The business is sustainable. The business supports people that stay within the community, because the more people use that, the local economy grows, right? So the businesses need to have a local first approach, like make sure that your daily customers are happy. You're not going to have, like as you've experienced now, like you're not going to have the big buses and the travelers and the things for the next probably 2-3 years, right? Up until, I don't know. So like it's just like how do businesses on the ground customize and be local first.
Do you find it interesting how social media has kind of pushed us to make the ideal travel video? So when you're browsing through like the reels and stuff, and you see what obviously Instagram has like an algorithm. So if your video doesn't conform to the ideal travel video, it doesn't get pushed to the top of people's feed. So do you find it interesting how, as a creator today, you kind of need to follow what's like, where do you post your media? You post on YouTube, on Instagram. You kind of have to conform to their rules in order to get your content out there for the world to see. Or like, what do you think about that shift or that kind of like ideal video?
So I think especially like with social, TikTok, etc., if the content is good, right? If the content is good and you have a community that appreciates the content, it's going to tick off, right? And the biggest thing is not being obsessed about being viral, but being obsessed about telling a good story, because that will get you the views and everything else. If the focus is making a viral video and trying to hack the algorithm, like I feel like you can, but then like in the long term, like it's just you're not gonna build a community and people that resonate with the content. So the fundamental around any content creation or building content or publishing content is, do you understand who your audience is? Do you understand what your audience wants? And are you creating something that touches them to actually go and be like, okay, like this is really dope, and do everything. So the fundamental for me is, are you communicating what you believe in, and does your community believe in what you believe in?
I think just to what she was saying,
algorithm and stuff like that. You can hack it, but I think what makes you stand out is if you actually not cheat it, but like create something that's not being pushed out into the internet. So I think if you make something from your heart, because I think things these days, most of them, I think they lack soul. Because it's like, I'm just trying to give things. So it's like cheap. But I think if you make something from your heart, which is like soulful, I think in the end, like I think people appreciate heart more than what's coming fast. I think. You know what I mean? It's like people appreciate like homemade food that cakes.
And also, I think it's a matter of understanding your market exactly, and who are you communicating this to, and what do you want to send to the people? Because I might view the video that you made in a different way than Mike. So, but if you know exactly who you're targeting with this video that you made, because when you're traveling with your phone or camera or whatever, it's like inviting people in your journey who are not there at that particular time. So when you give, if I'm not on that space and I'm watching this video, I should feel like I was there. That's the point of taking the videos. This da, so that I can have the idea of one day I want to go there. So you're unlocking that mind in me that, okay, this place is beautiful and I wish I could go there. But you need to have a way on how do you communicate that with your audience. So it's a matter of understanding who I am talking to. If I'm talking to someone from Kayamandi, how do I reach people from Kayamandi? Do I post it on YouTube? Will they have access on YouTube? Do I post it on Facebook? Will they have access on that? So it's a matter of understanding exactly where do you want this information to go to, and how do you portray that information?
Yeah, because like content is not just shooting. Content is distribution. Content is production. Content is insight. Content is reporting, right? So like after you post the content, who views it? How do they view it? How long do they view it? Why do they view it? And what time do they view it? So like it's really a process. It's not like you shoot and then like it dies. Like it's a process. Like it's a long process. But yes. So which then leads me to sharing the experience of being an eyewitness, which is what we've been talking about, right? So how do we visually create content? How do we tell stories that visually capture what you see, right? Capture your interest, capture your story, capture your fascinations, capture your questions, right? So like how do we do that? And the various ways in which people and places around Africa are represented and documented in popular media have an immense impact on how tourists imagine and anticipate future destinations. Even through tourism discourses, take a variety of forms, visual imagery seems to have the biggest influence on shaping pre-trip fantasies. So like this moves even like from individual people outside of the tourists. Like if you remove the word tourist and like how people imagine where they're going, like even if it's going to the grocery store, like you have a mental image of like I'm going to the grocery store. If you're going to Table Mountain, if you're going to a wine farm, like there is something that in the past has influenced you, and visually it has been that, whether through TV and now through social media and the influences and stuff. So I feel like we at a point where like really as eyewitnesses, and this is like a really interesting video that takes us through an eyewitness account, and the video is called What Does Guinea-Bissau Countryside Look Like? And just before I play it, like, do you guys have an idea or like what it looks like, and if anyone can share what they think Guinea-Bissau looks like in the rurals? What's mental image? Or make a mental image, and then after I play the video, we can talk more around what you were thinking and what you saw.
Buffering.
Just made it play the sound. I don't know what's happening in this video. Just give me that video, just let me-
Yeah.
The sound is horrible, guys. I'm really sorry. It makes watching it horrible. But the idea was to get you guys to question what is the real, authentic African experience, and how that has generally been pushed as what the Western traveler, or like what Europe thinks it means to travel Africa. And the video takes us through the journey of traveling Bissau from the Senegalese border into the capital city, and she showcases what she comes across throughout the journey. And I thought it would be interesting just to see that, based also on the conversations that we've been having around where do people go, what type of experience, and what does it mean, and what type of stories do you tell. So that it's not a wine tasting or whatever. It's just someone driving through the countryside and recording and having an experience and learning new things, which was really interesting for me. And it really interprets what traveling Africa now means for me. And also there's a lot of content and a lot of people that are starting to create content that resonates to them first and what they experience. And that is one of my favorite YouTubers since I think last week, when she almost got deported from Zimbabwe because she didn't want to pay bribe. So like I've been really deep in her YouTube, and she really has really interesting content. Yeah, and then before I play this, so like this is the last part of this is my last, like we're getting there. And then I want to ask you guys, like, with Africa being a country with technically 60 countries and officially 40 something, have you guys been outside of South Africa? Where have you been? What has been the experiences? Where do you want to go? Outside of Stellenbosch in Cape Town.
I want to go to Senegal and Mali.
I want to go to Dakar.
Rwanda? Zimbabwe? Zimbabwe? No, Zimbabwe, shame.
Been there, somewhere new. I would want to go back there.
Okay, cool. So I hope this one
Please.
Stand up.
Maybe playing it through the computer won't help us guys sound.
The computer's pretty loud.
Playing it through the computer.
Unplug the speaker
Yeah.
Unplug the speaker.
and play it through the map.
Okay.
Like this one is a minute long, so like
Okay.
we'll just try.
Oh, this one's fine.
That's right.
Cool.
Okay, cool. So that's a video. That was a marketing campaign pre-COVID. There was on the internet. There was Americans were told to go back to Africa. So like this travel company decided to do this campaign to say like, yeah, go back to Africa. It's fun, it's etc. And I wanted to contrast this with the previous video, right, of someone who is on the continent and traveling, and someone who is in America and looking to get people to travel Africa, and the two different types of narratives, and how this presentation and these visuals around Africa are presented. And I found it like very, very interesting, like the aesthetics for both videos. Like I thought like really, really dope stuff. I don't know how you guys feel about this video.
I think because I think all like different people always want to interpret things differently, in my opinion. So I mean, even if you take two Zimbabweans, we're not going to see Zimbabwe the same way. It's just about like how you grew up and how you like navigate the world, and that's going to obviously form and shape the way the media you produce the world, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Just think like that.
And then like in terms of telling stories and visually representing what we do, the work that we create, how are you guys navigating that space to say that there is a wide spectrum right, of stories. And you can't tell all stories, but you have to, I feel like you have to represent and be representative in your storytelling. How have you guys been navigating that as students who are looking at design as a career or design to influence your careers, student life, etc.?
Well, I think that's why we have studies like visual studies and discourse really. Like when I first came to the university, I didn't quite understand, like when I came here to do multimedia photography, and I was like, why do I need to take this subject? But then I actually started realizing that storytelling is one of the most powerful means we can put into any visual script. Whether it be photography, videography, if you can't tell a story, it's got no meaning. It's beautiful. But as a creative, it's like you said, there are many different creative groups and content creators that come together to formulate different ideas, but telling a story of something that's visually impactful to you, something to resonate with, is quite beautiful. Like you need to know how to tell that story.
I think there's a uniqueness in terms of the different kind of stories that are available. So you asked us what do we think about that video, and it's always interesting that the representation of the African continent always starts with kind of like, you know, this natural beauty, you know, the Victoria Falls, the Masai Mara, and all these kinds of things. And what's interesting is that we took this group to Durban, right? So if you think, before we went to Durban, how would you represent Durban? You know, you would think this is the home of, or the capital of the KwaZulu-Natal, so you're expecting to see Zulus dance and things like that. But Nina is here, your project was around Art Deco, you know, and how usually people would not think like Durban is the Art Deco capital of the world. You know, you gravitate towards the easy things, which is like the Zulu dances and whatever, but what that also tells you is that you can't tell a story that you haven't experienced yourself. So for you to tell that story, you have to get out of your comfort zone, to walk, to go to these spaces, and then discover something that is, you can see from your unique perspective, that you then are like, I think this is a story that has not been told, that I need to tell. Because I think what happens is that we just fall back to the narratives that have been pushed over and over and over again. And we fall onto those. Yet there are so many complexities and so many other stories that haven't been told, that if we expose ourselves within those cultural setups and within those spaces and within those cities, then you begin to see a completely, you know, a different story that you can then present.
And then, like, what type of stories do you guys think people like me who are in travel need to be telling? And how do we get to tell and collaborate with people like you guys that are creating content, that are creating strategies, that are building careers? How do we tell stories with you, and how do we collaborate with you guys? Anyone?
One thing that I just think a lot about these like travel blogs and stuff, it's important to find like a niche. Like I find often these like travel bloggers like go to a country and they want to cover everything, from like the art to the design to the food. Like it's almost following like Anthony Bourdain. He was like one of my favorite things to watch when I was a kid with my parents. Like he's very specifically engaging with food. It's a really beautiful vehicle to explore a place. Or someone that maybe is into music and like specifically goes to African countries just to like explore the music scene and like what's happening in Nigeria and that scene, what's happening in that scene. Like maybe finding a niche and not trying to cover everything is like a cool way to read about it.
I was going to say, like, the other thing for me that's become increasingly problematic is like the thing of like supporting and growing local businesses and local industries. And like, I think the thing is that it's like you don't want to pump products, but rather like, this is the person who took me to this place. Here, like, almost like hooking people up to the person who's going to walk you through Kaya Mandi. Like, or I don't know what it is. Like, I often feel like I think tourism is going away from the package tour, but I think there has to also be a thing of like, that you can't just rock up in Durban and know where to go. Like, it's a thing of like, could there be a system of like, this is your local 101 guide? Like, a lot of people don't like guides, or we want to do it on your own, but yeah, I don't know. I think there's so many sort of like layers to like, also navigating the ethics of, you know, are you wanting, or like, you know, knowing about Little Gujarat now, like, I will go back to that place and eat their food every time I'm in Durban, but like, that is, I don't know, I think that's the kind of thing that travel blogging also needs to do, is to genuinely, because I also had the experience of there used to be the Lonely Planet, the Bible of Southeast Asia, whatever. But it really angered some people, because if they didn't make it into that thing, they were finished. It's and now we live in a world of multiple Lonely Planets. Everyone's blog or whatever. In a way, it's great, because it means that there's more sort of diversity or there's more ability. But for me, it's always like that word of mouth recommendation that for me is still king. So if your blog, as a content creator, I feel like I like this guy, I like the way he travels, because there are many ways to travel, So I like the fact that he's doing local transport. Then I want to follow him because that's his thing. And I think it's this thing of is this someone I would trust?
Okay, my name is Trevor again. I run a company called Hello Africa Travel. We make it easy for people to plan and book their African travels. And we just relaunched 2 days ago with about 8 tours that we have curated, and we're in the process of onboarding more tour operators and more people who have different products. We I'm traveling Southern Africa for the next year. I'm in 3 months of my travels now. I've been to Sutherland, Ceres, Cape Town, and I'm in Stellenbosch for a couple of weeks, and then doing a festival in Sedgeville and going up the coast. And I'm really, really interested in collaborating with people that are interested in telling different stories, people that are interested in going on our packages, and people that we work with and tell the stories of those packages and share their memories of those packages. If you go on the website, there's a link to sign up to a travel program. You travel for free, we give you a stipend, and you live your best life. So literally excited about the journey that I'm on, and really grateful to spend my morning here talking to you guys, learning and sharing what I'm passionate about, and also exploring what the future of that looks like, and trying and engaging with you guys to give me a different perspective and to learn. I hope it was as beneficial to you guys as it was to me, and I appreciate you. I'm around for the rest of the day. Questions now, and I'm here as well.
Actually, one last question for you. What's the best way to see a place? Is it through booking, through a travel company like yourself, or is it actually just by going on the internet and starting yourself, planning your trip?
Both, right? So both, depending on what you're interested in. So one of the things that we do is every person that is on our website is verified and is a real company. So we try as much as possible to remove the scammers and all the other admin and build something that people can trust. So depending also on the type of traveler that you are. So you can book through us, but for other experiences that you see on the ground, then that you can book by yourself, or if you meet someone who recommends something that's not included in what you book through us. And we also have other stuff on the website, so we're always giving recommendations, we're always recommending other people that do better jobs at showing you Stellenbosch than I would, because I don't know Stellenbosch. So what I would say is, wherever you are, it's really nice to use a trusted platform, but always be flexible to look and try new things.
I think for me, it's not even about the platforms that you use, but it's also about your attitude. Because travel, especially if you're just traveling outside your comfort zone, even places within the same city, right? There's a difference between traveling from central Stellenbosch to go to Karamani, and vice versa. So I think your attitude towards difference really is central in around your experience, and the spaces and the doors that are going to open to you, or the spaces and the doors that are going to remain shut to you, your attitude. Because how do you deal with encountering difference? you have to let go. I think if you're somebody who is in trouble, I think you have to let go and actually get a kind of like freedom to be like, I'm just going to almost be like a leaf in a river and just experience it all as it comes. But I think it's very difficult for people to let go of their own positionality in the world in terms of how they see the world. So the moment you encounter difference, your attitude towards difference then really influences your travel. So I think a very lax attitude and this attitude of just taking it all in, because in understanding that you're whoever you are and whatever your cultural values or whatever your ways of seeing the world is just one out of a multiplicity. By traveling, you're trying to understand the complexity of the world through time, right? Through past, present, and future. And you are just one kind of like atom within this huge sphere of other atoms. So when you encounter other atoms, then what is your attitude towards them? You just have to embrace it all and be like, this is what the world is. I'm privileged enough to have the time and maybe even the money to be exposed to other ways of being and seeing and doing things in the world. And that's the essence of travel, right? That's why you have left your place. Because there's a mundanity within where you're coming from that you're like, I want to go somewhere else where my mind and my brain is going to be wild. So when you get wild, then you can't resort back to your default position of the space that you're coming from. I think that has been my thing, and it has served me well. But you have to find your own thing, I think.
But I think like when you go through I think everyone was like Kontiki, they do pretty much tours through everywhere. But when you go through there, they often take you to like one of the very oversaturated places where you expect to go. But when you travel and you want to go into like the rural areas and experience the culture, I feel like that's what a lot of travel companies don't offer you. That you have to kind of do for yourself.
Yeah, like it depends which travel companies. Like with us, like we'll take you to the rural areas, we'll take you to the places that the traditional companies wouldn't take you, because they can only take you to Cape Town and see Table Mountain and the waterfront kind of vibe. But we'll take you wherever. Just say, and then we'll plan to take you to the rural areas and show you everything you want to see and more. And things that you didn't know exist. So like I think it's, like Mike said, be free, flow, and appreciate everything. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Sonia. Thanks, Aidan. Do you have any questions?
Oh, yes, we forgot that.
You breaking up?
Said not yet, no.
Okay, cool. Sonia, are you good?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, thanks, guys. Yeah. Yes, this is it, guys. Thank you. See you on Monday. Monday is not a formal class. We kind of wrapping things up because you've got your presentations. Annie has requested to do lecturer survey forms, so it's like an admin class on Monday. For those of you who will not be physically here, and in Sonia, they'll be emailed the forms virtually. Then the only other thing was I was going to chat about the final reflective seminar, and you can use that space to also do it. So I'm also so mindful of your practice. We've just totally taken the pressure off. Like we've done all the big work for visual studies, and yeah. And then the other option is